I have been to worship services morning and evening every day while I was at Mission U, and the most spiritual thing that happened to me there was in the pottery studio having tea.
Were the monks there?
There were 2 monks who showed up for that tea. So basically the pottery studio, it turns out, is a very sustainable pottery studio. So the man who essentially created this pottery studio studied for many years in Japan, and then when he came back, he looked for clay. First thing was to look for local clay. And as they were doing excavation for a road, they found a large deposit of clay, which they excavated and stockpiled at the St. John's University campus. They believe they have enough clay for 300 years.
Oh my goodness.
To maintain this pottery studio for 300 years. So talking about sustainability, right? And they built their own kiln. And they built it so that it would use less energy. They fire this kiln every couple of years. And when they fill it with about 12,000 pieces of pottery. So they put the pieces very close to one another. They stack them up. It's the kiln is 87 feet long and probably a little over 6 feet high. And I'm not sure exactly how wide, but not like 87 feet. It's really a long, narrow kind of thing. And to fire it requires community. It's a wood-fired kiln. And so they need people who are feeding wood into the kiln. And they have a huge celebration when they light it, the lighting of the kiln. So it's got aspects of sustainability and of community. And then you can go, you get a tour, they're explaining all of this, and at 3 o'clock you're invited to have tea. And there's this huge square Japanese tea table. It is not a gentle tea table. It's a massive tea table. Big oak beams on the outside, and on the inside is an area of sand. And in the very center of the sand is a harp with a tea kettle on it. And they put out, I brought mine, I bought one. So when I looked at them in the bookstore, I thought, I'm not buying one of these. When I was there and experienced it, then I thought, I would like to have this. Mostly because it will remind me to stop at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have tea. To talk to the people next to me. To remember that I'm a human being, not a human doing. Right? So I'm going to pass that around. And you can see it's not glazed, but it kind of self-glazes in places because of the way it's fired next to other pieces. So we sat and had tea and cookies with whoever showed up. They were expecting 3 people, 10 of us were there. And it was a very lovely moment of peace and connection with other human beings in a very hospitable space. So it's a reminder to me that this inviting of other people in, of welcoming people, of taking the time to talk with them is part of who we are. And as I was reflecting on this, I was also reading from Henry Nouwen. And I'm sure many of you have read some of his work. And I just wanted to remind us of something I thought was very insightful that he said. He talks about how in our world today, there's a lot of noise. And he said, our lives become absurd or crazy. He says if you look at the Latin, what that really means is out, ab is out of, and surd means deafness. Our lives become absurd because of our deafness. And that the opposite of that is an obedient life. obedient life is a life that's towards listening. So I wanted us to have some time to think about what are the practices that you already do or that you will add to your life. What are the practices that help us listen, to really listen deeply to what we think God is calling us into, but also that voice of God within us that reminds us who we are, who we were created to be. Parker Palmer talks about his granddaughter, and he says, because of this noisiness of the world, when we grow up, we forget sometimes who we were created to be. So one of the things he has done as a gift for his granddaughter is he is watching her, he's observing her, and writing down things. What is she drawn toward? What is she repelled by? What is it that she just naturally likes to do and to be? And he says when she gets older, he's going to remind her. He's going to give her his notes about who she was created to be from the very beginning. So I want you to take just a few minutes, and I want you to turn to a neighbor and talk about those practices that you currently do or that you will commit to doing to keep that peace within you, to remember who you were created to be, to listen to God speaking to you. So take just 5 minutes and talk to me. Maybe not even 5. I might give you 3.
Something I can do. Not necessarily very like intentional. They're trying to go from the walks.
I'll either just sit and do nothing for an hour and a half, or I'll just do it. Falling asleep. There's that. I do those things. And then I also try to do that once a week. Only one. My head's in there. And it's path all up to a dam. We walk up the dam. It's just beautiful land. It's still
I'm in my 4th year of seminary, and all the people I shared with are gone, and I'm just like, the last thing, really what I want to be thinking to go is my coursework, because I feel like I'm really checked out and already done. But I cannot do it, or else I won't be able to, and I actually want to start there. I think it has led to a place in my life. It's hard for me to find information.
I also like cooking, so that's all I'm trying to do. Just practice for me. He's doing what do you like to cook? Well, I do it with especially when you're healthy. But cooking like you start with chopping up an onion or a shallot or garlic, putting it in the pan, cleaning your oven, whatever gets added to it, seasonings. Oftentimes there's beef, simple vegetables, and shreds.
Easy on what you have.
Yeah, what I can find in the fridge and the pantry.
So any thoughts, any insights, any questions? Yes.
So I have, one of the things we talked about was we have the practices, or we know the practices that are life-giving to us. But when particularly busy or stressful times come, those are the first things to go out of our schedule. And I was trying to figure out, is that sort of when those should be the last things that go from your schedule, right? But they're the first things to go. And I'm trying to understand, is that a lack of discipline on my part? Is that lack of obedience? I don't know, but that seems to be the case.
I think, well, and maybe others have a different answer to this. I don't know that there's one answer to that. But for me, I do that because there are other people I'm trying to accomplish something for. And so I feel that it's more important that I not let anyone else down before so it's prioritizing others' requirements of me over my own needs, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know that there's a right one answer to that. Does anybody else have an answer to that? Over here.
Just that I've been doing a lot of reading written by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, and the encouragement from that is that I don't have to have, yes, I like my morning and evening time of reading and prayer and everything, but if I don't have that, I can drive in my car and meditate. I can use every aspect of my life as a time of meditation, of mindfulness and being present. And it's really helped a lot to move in that direction of really focusing on the now. Not driving in my car thinking, what's going to happen in 2 hours or 3 hours. But,
For what you said about putting everybody else's needs first, the Bible tells us to love others as we love ourselves. And we're not loving ourselves very much if we're neglecting ourselves too much. And so I think that balance is very important, to make time to meet your needs because we're supposed to love each other as we love ourselves. So that means the same.
Well, loving self is part, yeah, this is in there. Right. Good.
I found that when you explain that to people, what your needs are, that they're very open to that and to giving you more space than you ever thought they would. So you think you're going to go up and down. If you really explain where you are mentally, they'll say, you can have that space. It took me years to figure out to say, no, I can't do this now, but I can do it this time. Because this time is my list.
Yes,
I
Paul.
guess just my only response is that I'm the same way.
I'm the same way too. I do it all the time.
One of the things we were discussing is this thing is a major objection to
Cautions with the cell phones, yeah.
So I'm a very curious person, and I'm always trying to find new things, trying to learn new things, and I just hate to lose the opportunity to learn something new or to make a lot of commitments for things I want to do, and I want to do them all. And when I can't, when I just inevitably run out of time, there's a bit of grieving, a bit of a loss sense. And we actually, I think humans put more emphasis on things lost than they do on things found. I mean, imagine if you had a $5 bill and you suddenly realize it fell out of your pocket and it's gone and you're never going to get it back. Versus walking down the street and seeing a $5 bill on the ground and saying, oh, well, that's kind of cool. I think we put a lot more emphasis on the $5 lost. And so for me, what I try to do, and I don't manage my life all that well, but I try to get over the losses quickly and recognize that there's a lot of things that I find that are really great and value those things more if I can and put the losses behind me as quickly as I can.
Yeah, Jonathan.
I kind of think of it in terms back when our children were infants, and your parents are always exhausted, right? But I would try to give my wife time to rest because I knew that she was no good for the child if she was worn out. And it's the same concept when we get into ministry, that we're really no good for the ministry if we're worn out. So we need to take care of ourselves in order to be able to do what we're called to do.
One of the things that I've realized that I simply must have is time immersed in nature, and not just thinking about it or doing it, but actually experiencing it. And I do think it is a culture. And I guess that's one reason that I'm so passionate about it, instilling that or offering that to young children, because I think as a culture we're just getting further and further and further away from it, and immersing myself in it on a regular basis. Something I realize I just need my nature fix.
One of the things that I've found useful most recently is kind of a combination of things that have been said, but that we often beat ourselves up for not giving ourselves enough self-care, like it becomes another task that we should be on. And like, why didn't I care for myself more? Darn, I gotta add that to my list. I go to that, but it's that the idea of really being present. So I'm really stressed out. I'm gonna pay attention to the blue sky for just 2 minutes and breathe, and just carve out the being present and to count that. To give yourself credit that is your self-care. And then I think we were talking about seasons, that to recognize there are seasons of busyness and there's seasons of withdrawal, because I often get really bored in my seasons of withdrawal instead of recognizing them as resting times. So I felt that.
Okay, great. I'd like to end just with reading to you Psalm 139, at least the first part of it. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in, behind, and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. That I know very well. Yes. So Dan is going to lead us now as the international folks.
Yeah, the international folks, I want to share your projects like we did yesterday. And so what you will do is just give your name, your project name, your passion, your success sentence. So again, it's just giving your name, your project name,
your passion, and your success sentences. And that's how we're going to be share your projects with everybody here. So would somebody like to go first? I know we're kind of transitioning here, so it might take a moment.
Somebody to go first. I can go.
Okay, thanks, Jefferson.
All right. So my project,
Your name?
my name is Jefferson D. Knight. And my passion is
Your project name?
project.
Project name.
Or the project name is tree planting. Trees for life. Yeah. And then the next you say, what's the
Passion?
next?
Your passion?
Action.
Good. So my passion is climate justice.
Mhm.
Yeah, basically.
And your success sentence.
Oh, so sometimes. All right. We just get it quick. To plant 10,000 trees in Africa in partnership with our churches and local communities, making use of the young people.
Thank you. Would somebody like to go next?
My name is Tanel Kamuzungu. I'm from Zimbabwe. The project is still the same. We are going to be planting trees in Zimbabwe, and we are looking in the first year to plant about 2,500 trees. And
Your project name?
the project name is Trees for Life. It's just the same, like as the Africa Creation Care Ministries, we are just adopting the same concept. Then the success, we are going to be working with church structures as well with the community, so church leaders, community stakeholders, as well as the youth to be able to plant trees in Zimbabwe.
All right, thank you.
Did I leave anything else?
No, that was great.
Thank you.
I have come for the same thing, but the only difference is that passion with is advocacy and frequency and planting 10,000 trees in 3 different provinces through continents and
All right, thank you. Great.
Suti Pagulaya, my passion is in agriculture, remains food. Project name is there, food and water for everyone. If I was writing on a technical term, it would be integrating food security and wash projects. And success sentence would be church and community people have access to safe food and water.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Pedro from the Philippines. We are into the Earthkeepers ministry program for the Philippines around the area. And the program would look into the climate change resilient communities as a partnership with the church and the community. A specific project would be that of seed banking, to have seed banks in every home or in every church, whereby after disasters, there would be available seeds that would be planted by families and everyone in the community in order for us to be self-sufficient. I am very much passionate about educating people, specifically in the environmental realm, and success stories would be several organizations to which I have been involved in and are still living and are continuing in spite of my absence in the community.
Thank you. Great.
Well, as you know, I am graduate from Argentina. This is the project. But it's being by partners, but it's not, it's a more friendly word, partners. My passion is chemistry and So I'm living in the north part of Argentina. The project is called Sentinela, the nature of the whole education, because I'm committed to the network in Argentina to start working with the education. The church is not a total decision. It's like, how to wake up the church. And so, I say, the stars. I hope one year we could have at least 2 meetings where kind of share passion and we get together. Other than that, find some questions to start to work with local community. Start to find net relationship with our institutions locally.
Okay, great. Okay. My name is Dinkin Calvert. I'm from Nigeria. I initially wrote on what we are doing in African Creation Care Ministry, which is tree planting, but I'm presenting on potable water generation, which is also a very serious issue. And my passion will be community development. And then success centers will be to provide potable water to those communities that have issues around good drinking water. Thank you.
For the elders to see me clearly. I'm Israel Painita, Ace from the Philippines. My passion really is organizing. I think for 8 years I'm in this, I love organizing people and the marginalized people and greening our environment. This is already 3 years now. We have our greening program like Green Riders Club, and the idea is the success is for 3 years we kept on visiting communities and planting trees, because as the chair also of the Central Conference, we have the target to plant 1 million trees for 4 years. So in our conference particularly, this is our program, Green Riders Club, and we are really inspired by this because our churches are really participating in this, in this campaign. And organizing IPs, we have now a program for the women and children of the indigenous peoples, like beads, what they call that one? Beads making.
Beads,
yeah, the one I wore the other day. Yeah. So also they're successful with that, and every time we have visitors in that community, they have this, display in their houses, so you can easily buy that one. So I hope that this will, replicate to some other communities. That's our stories there.
I think we got everybody. Let's give a hand for these extremely inspiring.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's good enough. Will there be snacks? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so I don't have an agenda
So
for
I have
this.
a question.
Okay.
Since we're going to be talking, my question is you finish your project, what then?
You do another one. Yeah, you do another one.
You come back and you're part of the teaching class.
So we've talked about how long this commitment is for, and we were thinking, I'm kind of going on memory here, but I think we were thinking like this would be a 3-year commitment, and then you could recommit every year after that. But just that the initial one would be, we're hoping would be for 3 years. Okay. I mean, obviously you're all volunteers, so if you take yourself out of this program, it's not like there's anything we can do about it.
And there certainly may be reasons for that. There may be family considerations, health issues, all kinds of stuff. But we do want there to be a commitment. Even though you're a volunteer, we want there to be a commitment on your part.
And we did talk about ways in which we hear back how things are going. And that's sort of ongoing, but perhaps you send something to Susan as a consultant, perhaps, but we'll continue to contact you and let you know, because the real beauty of this is not that we've commissioned Earthkeepers, it's what they're going to do.
Right.
It's the work, it's the things that are going to happen. That's the real story. So we'll find ways of those being shared back.
Well, the cohorts could report.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and this is kind of leading into this discussion, because there were 2 open spaces yesterday in which we talked about Earthkeepers, but there also seemed to be a desire or a need to have a larger group conversation about Earthkeepers. So, not quite sure how to do that. I don't know that I need to say a whole lot more than I've already said. We want to commission 500 of you over maybe an 8 to 10 year period. We're doing 1 training this year, 1 training next year. Hopefully, we will begin to do 2 trainings per year after that. I guess I just throw it out to you. I think if there are questions or concerns maybe you have, and now that you've sat through all of this, maybe a little evaluation stuff, if there are things that have worked well or things that haven't worked, or how would you sort of, if you were in my position, how would you envision Earthkeepers going forward? And I think we could also try to think about Earthkeepers as the creation care ministry of the church and what that might look like. And so anyway, I'll kind of just brainstorming stuff and ideas. Yes, Renee.
An easy question. Like one person's already asked me if they wanted to become an Earthkeeper, how do they apply? Is there like who do we send them to? What?
Me for now. They
Okay.
email
So
me
give
and
them your email.
they ask for an application, and I will email them an application.
Okay.
Yes. It will probably become Susan as well, or Susan and I both, is my guess. Yeah. But for now, they can email me.
So do we have a functioning, organized board? No.
No.
Whatever, an organizing
Steering
core
committee?
No.
of leadership?
No, we don't. So here's our philosophy, and Dan helped me a lot with this. So are you going to say something? You're going to?
Well, I might, but then I might need to, so there has been some discussion about creating
Yes.
and organizing, like a steering committee, especially because we're in this transition time and it's just not clear what is going to happen and when it's going to happen through global ministry, so that maybe in order to keep our momentum going, it would be helpful to have, at least in the interim, a steering committee. And there are some people in this room that would be happy to do that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now go ahead and say your philosophy.
So one thing that, the three of us talked a little bit about this before we really thought about Earthkeepers, and or maybe it was sort of simultaneous. Do we start with the structure? Do we start with a hierarchy with a board of directors and a chair and a vice chair and a secretary and treasurer and the directors and all that stuff? Do we start with that? Do we get that in place? And then so we'll have some structure under which to do this ministry. And I love what Dan said. Dan said, I think we start with Earthkeeper. We start with a movement. That's what we start with, a movement, not a hierarchy.
Yes.
And then as the movement happens and lives and breathes, then if some structure needs to happen, it will naturally evolve out of that movement. Now, if that's what's already happening, maybe so, yes. But my thinking is that if we do this 25 or 30 times, and if each class has this structure, it might get a little unwieldy, however you say that. But I don't know. I don't have a particular.
Can I make a suggestion? Since
Yeah.
it's new, and most of us will be, hopefully in Ohio, maybe at that point we'll be able to decide what kind of support we need in regards to a steering committee.
Yeah.
I agree with Dan that the structure feels overwhelming, and a lot of us have already sort of said that's part of the challenges is being overstructured.
Yeah.
But the other thing is there's a thing in Georgia, and I don't know if they do it anywhere else because I haven't heard of it, and it's called, basically it brings people from the community and business leaders together, and it's called iGel, and they spend the whole year learning in depth about all the environmental stuff. They take 4 weekends out a year, and then the classes sort of act towards each other. So one class will say, we're going to put out a funding call to fund 10,000 trees. We want, we're going to challenge the other classes to do it. So maybe we treat it in a class structure from that perspective instead of trying to build all this stuff.
Yeah. I could foresee if we do feel like we need some overarching structure, and I think we would need that if there were 500 of us, for goodness sake. I definitely think we would need that, and I could foresee maybe one of you and maybe one of each class of Earthkeepers becoming the board of directors for such a structure. But I guess the question for me is that do we start that right now or not? And the other piece is that a lot of this, I don't think you need to have any fear or anxiety about us being in touch with you and about keeping you alive and going, because Global Ministries is going to do a whole lot of that. Again, the fact that we've had all this Global Ministries staff here has been fantastic, and they're not going to leave you alone. I promise you that. They're not going to. They're invested here. So we don't necessarily need a structure just to make sure that we're all held accountable or any of that stuff. Yeah, Martha?
Yeah, I like many of you may have, I have a real love-hate relationship with structure. The only, in this interim period or this sort of nascent period, I don't necessarily think that structure is necessary, but I do think that some methodical, predictable communication is. And if what you're saying is that you're sort of ensuring us that there will be that, I guess I just really don't want to, because it's happened too many times, I've gotten close to a group and shared with the group and envisioned, and then we've gone away. And even though we talked about how lonely it gets out there, there's just absolutely got to be that ongoing communication. And the cohorts are a major part of that.
And the ongoing communication within the cohorts is up to the cohorts.
Yes.
But Denise, you and Scott maybe could comment. Do you feel good about, can we ensure this group that there will be that communication happening?
Well, I mean,
it's all brand new.
Yeah, I mean, part of what we have is a consultant, which is Susan, which is part-time. Not a full-time, she's not a full-time consultant for Global Ministries. She's a part-time consultant. What we do have is the plans for another staff person to be hired whose role is creation care. So that person has not been hired, but the plan is that they are to be hired. And I would see that person working with Susan, very similar to Pat, particularly in that interim. And quite honestly, I don't see Pat going away. I mean, he's going to retire. He's not going to do this full time, but he's not going to quit caring about Earthkeepers. Right. So he's going to be a part of all that. So yes, there is this transition time with Pat going away, but probably more than ever, Global Ministries is the most invested it's ever been.
Yes,
absolutely.
It is the most invested that it's ever been. And so we also have Scott, who is a part of the Center for Mission Innovation, who is an Earthkeeper. So who's going to be commissioned as an Earthkeeper. So we've got some synergy there in a lot of ways. Now, I don't have a staff person, one staff person right now that I can say will be contacting each cohort every month or every quarter. We don't have that right now. I anticipate we will, but we don't have it right now. So I think that's really as truthful as I can be about where we are.
I guess that the apprehension is, maybe I'm just reading between the lines, or maybe I'm just completely wrong, but I guess I'm sensing that there's a little uncertainty about the board's commitment to this. Am I wrong about that? I mean, for instance, just when you say there's plans for another person to be hired in the creation care position, are you saying that another person is going to be hired? Or are you saying that that's in the works as a possibility?
I am saying right now we are in process of hiring 40 new staff. And one of those, not for the Center for Mission Innovation, for Global Ministries. We've just moved from New York, where we had about 50 staff that did not move. So we are, Global Ministries is in a transition. So we've got a lot, I mean, at each of our cabinet meetings, we go down every unit and say, okay, how many more staff are, I mean, they're budgeted, these are budgeted staff positions, but we are just, I mean, we're interviewing people as fast as we can. So it is not that I'm hoping that there will be, it has been named that there will be a staff person whose job it is to be caring for, creation care is going to be the central part of there.
And the job announcement has been put out.
It has not.
No.
It has not.
It has not.
You know, that's why there may be a little bit of angst, Paul, because it's not actively being looked for right now. But yeah, I agree with Denise. I think from all I understand, there's pretty good commitment that it will happen. And I just had a thought, Denise, since you need 40 people and there's about 40 of us.
Finance people, we need finance people. We got some
Denise, I would say in the interim though, with Mission Innovation, some of the, I think the newer piece and the newer approach is this flow of communication and energy between Global Ministries and specifically Mission Innovation, more dynamic, progressive, leaning into the future kind of group. And specifically with some of our work with congregations and districts and conference to come alongside and partner with you. So even in the interim, we can easily serve in that capacity. We've spent a week together. We know each other, so you can reach out to us right away.
And I think, Paul, I think my assumption is, yes, Global Ministries will hire somebody to take my place. That's my assumption. And I think it's 90% certain. If for some reason Global Ministries does not do that, I think then we have the conversation that we need to have. Because the three of us, again, when we were dreaming about Earthkeepers, we said, well, what happens if Global Ministries doesn't approve it? Because that was a real possibility. They'd never done anything like this before. So we present it to Global Ministries and they say no. So if they say no, then what? And so the three of us said, well, we'll do it anyway. We'll figure out a way to do it. It was that important for the three of us to figure out a way to do it. And so if Global Ministries, for some reason, and I can't imagine why they would, but for some reason said, okay, we don't like Earthkeepers anymore. Well, then we make it happen.
Right.
We figure out a way to make it happen. Yeah. So that's how I come down with that. The Earthkeepers will, it will happen. Or if we want it to, it'll happen. Whether it be in Global Ministries or not. But there's no indication, none at all, that Global Ministries won't really just embrace this.
Just a real quick follow-up, then is it, getting back to Beth's point, is it likely that we should know a whole lot more by April?
Yes.
I mean, is that a reasonable
Yes.
timeline?
Yeah. I expect that the job to be posted by the first of the year. Yeah. Or shortly thereafter. That's my expectation. Yes.
Can you be part of the discussion?
Sure. You're an Earthkeeper.
You're allowed.
Yes, you're an Earthkeeper. So, yes.
By the way, everybody knows that this is ACE, right? None of this is Israel. This is ACE. This is Pastor ACE. ACE.
It's ironic or awkward for me to, we are here to be organizers, but we cannot able to organize ourselves.
To what?
To hold the shot, or I mean, oh hey, let's go like this. Then second, we will really need documentor, because stories from organizers can really impact and inspire each other. It's one of us.
But isn't that
So
cornerstone?
it may not be a hierarchical or nature, but just an interim group that is not so attached with any. It's like a subcommittee or task force for Earthkeepers, something like that. Then, if the mandate to organize or to have this Earthkeepers seminar is central to the trust of TVGM, I think it's fitting and proper to organize ourselves into an interim group, something like that, so that it will keep us moving and looking forward without bothering, without worrying what will be the life of this group, or it will come to a natural death, something like that. I don't know, but just a 2 cents of.
Okay.
I agree. I think that if we're starting a movement and then we're depending on the hierarchy to do everything for us, that what this is really about is emerging whatever, it doesn't have to be some formal structure, but it's intentional.
Okay.
And it is, if nothing else, if there was at least somebody in each cohort that was named, or it doesn't have to be that, but those that just feel that they want to be tending to the future of it. And I'm not, I mean, a good question might be what for the movement, and the good question is what functions are not being met, and perhaps they're being met, and then if they're not, then figuring out how to get them met. But the key task of those tenders of the movement is to make sure that we're being intentional about that.
And say more about that. What does that mean to tend the movement? Kind of specifically, what would that mean?
Well, I think at least in this interim point, is to be asking the questions, what do we need? If we need to communicate amongst cohorts, then we communicate amongst cohorts. If we need more information from the general board, then we figure out how to get that. I mean, we don't necessarily know what the questions are, but at least we would have a group intentionally just being prepared to work on it. Maybe, Martha, we've had a brief conversation, you have
Yeah.
Is that what you're nodding?
Yes.
You say it better than I am.
I don't think I can. I would agree with that. I just, it's probably because, like many of you, excuse me, I'm stammering. Like many of you, I have been in these situations, not exactly like this, but the momentum, and I don't want to miss a beat. I don't want to create something that doesn't need to be created. It doesn't need to be intricate, but and I agree with what Dan has said about, let it come up.
Yeah.
But right
and
now,
that might be what's happening. See?
maybe what we need are grassroots.
Yeah.
We have grassroots.
Yeah. Thank you for weighing in, Dan. Help me here.
I mean, we've had a team. We've had a team, Pat, Susan, and I, and then we've included others like Kathleen and folks. So we've had a team, and so Pat's retired. But so do we keep some of this team and include some others, or what kind of makes sense with that?
Yeah. Okay.
I think the fear is that if you're gone, who's gonna be leading? I mean, that seems to be what I'm hearing.
I don't see myself fading out of the picture entirely. I hope.
No, me neither.
So,
Right.
So how do we maintain this team and maybe add some folks?
And just as y'all are talking, we are. This is not just about creation care, but we are sort of experimenting with a whole different way of being in mission. And so, Global Ministries is traditionally done projects. Global Ministries does projects all over the world, but it's sort of the staff and the missionaries that do the projects, and this is a little bit new, although there's volunteer and mission stuff, but this is maybe a little bit new. So maybe some of this emerging structure that you're talking about, maybe that's equivalent to finding some new ways of being in mission. So maybe that could also, I don't know, be
The
some,
new model.
a kind of a different model that Global Ministries could again consider as an example for other things. I don't know.
I want to go, I understand there's a lot of angst about how this works, but April is only 6 months away. What's going to happen between now and April? People are going to have their first cohort meetings. People are going to start working on their projects. There'll be an announcement made. Maybe we'll have someone replacing Kat. So I think sometimes you feed into the angst, and it's all for naught anyway. So I don't think waiting 6 months to figure out structure when we've got so many first steps in front of us and so much change happening in front of us, I don't think we have to, I think we should give ourselves grace to say it's going to be okay. 6 months, we're all still going to be completely motivated and still be engaged. If we were going to say let's wait 2 years, then that would be a real issue. But we all know how fast 6 months is going to go. It's going to go like that.
Okay. So I think part of the struggle we're having here is I'm not hearing a clear reason for the board to exist. Up to this point, you guys have been focused on putting on this event, and you obviously have the task of putting on the next event. But what is it that that central organization is going to do for all of us? Now, when I came to this, I had a blank slate. I didn't know what to expect, and I'm really pleased with what has happened here. And I think what I've been given license to do is go do whatever I want. And the question I have is, we haven't talked at all about branding or marketing Earthkeepers. And I think that would be a role of a board. Are we going to do things under the name of Earthkeepers? And if we do, is there any kind of vetting that we want to have done? Or should we just not use the Earthkeepers name when we're out there and just be a society?
No, it's our commission.
Those are the kinds of questions that I think we need to answer fairly near term, and I think there should be a team answering those kind of questions. Because once you just let us all go, if you decide you want to rein us in, that's going to be kind of painful.
Right, plus you've met us, so like trying to rein us in.
Give us our reigning cats.
At least a couple of you.
Sarah was punch in the face.
Non-violently, of course.
Anna, you.
In love.
I think you might did first, and then maybe you. So we're hoping that government will care about it. But I think it's good that as a big team, we share common strength. Like we are committed that we were doing, and we are going to do, and we are doing it. So even your government ministry is in transition, we are still working. And this is an strength that we are not waiting for you to decide or you have your organization very, very well set up. Even when that is correct, there is a transition time, you need a time to put everything in order. Okay, do it. But we are not just like doing nothing while that happens, because we have much to do. And we decided and we discussed it and we are sharing and we have clear ideas and we want to have practical results. So, and I think this is showing strength. And after 6 months, putting all that strength in the table, things are different.
So maybe one decision is, do we, whatever this organization might look like, Paul?
Well, I'm just wondering what Susan and Dan and you are willing to continue to do, and if it might make sense to add one person from each cohort to make up a little team. And we've identified, I've heard 3 things specifically said that this group, very informal, it doesn't have to be real formal, somebody needs to convene it, but I've heard 3 specific things. One is to facilitate communication between the cohorts, between all of us. The second thing I've heard is to help us know what's going on with the board, where that is in process in terms of finding a new Pat Watkins, which that's probably impossible, but somebody like that. And then the third thing, a third thing that was mentioned is this whole issue of You know, do you have to meet some sort of, you have to be better than a D- student to be able to be an Earthkeeper? I think that's one way to put it. But, you know, vetting, branding, just, you know, can anybody do anything in the name of Earthkeepers? You know, so those are 3 specific things that have been mentioned that I think it would be great. And also, you know, depending upon who gets hired, it's going to take them a little bit of time. Maybe it's one of us. But you know, if it were not for some reason, that person's going to take a little while to get on board with what's happening too. So I think that there's enough of things to be done. These very, in some ways, simple things, but important things that. So getting back to the first question is what you and Dan and Susan are willing to do, and would it make sense then for the 3 of you to bring on one person from each of the cohorts, and there you've got your team.
And I have just one more thing I want to add to that pile, is the GBGM is a customer. What do they expect?
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
General Board of Global Ministries.
It's the sanctioning body of this, right?
Yeah, he's using the GBGM is the General Board of Global Ministries.
Okay.
That's our mission board. That's who I work for. Yeah.
I mean, they're going to expect some deliverables.
Right. Well, one answer to that question is Thomas Kemper will expect results. He's a pretty results-oriented guy, and I don't think that's too terrible. I think it's hard to define what success is in all of this. But he wants to see something happen. He will want to see something happen, to answer that piece.
And if we want to continue, we need to give that to him.
Absolutely. Yes.
Over here.
Yes, because I wanted us to do 2 trainings next year. And Thomas said, no, let's only do 1 because you haven't proven yourself yet. You got to demonstrate to me that this is a viable mission of the church. And if it is, sure, you can do 2 trainings.
Because what we don't want is just we don't want to have trainings for the sake of training. You know, that's not what our general agencies need to do.
Right.
Is just do training.
Right.
So I think that's why I said the success is not that we've had the trainings, it's going to be what happens out there.
Yeah. Jefferson?
Yeah. So I think from the different input, I want to agree with Bill and Israel that even if we will not have a formal structure put into place, especially in your absence, though we have Susan and Dan, at least we can have, even if it is a committee, like we're recommending, and a little subcommittee that will be able to, like a steering committee that will steer the activities. Because all these pop and what have you, like us, we have a discussion and we have good plans in the place, like Anahi talked about. So even if you retire in December, we are still working and we'll still continue to do our work. But we need a central point where all of us can gather, like put it into that pool, those things that will be gathering experiences, sharing different success stories, challenges, and see how we can just share knowledge and move the process forward. That would be great. And so we can just leave it open and everybody go and do their own thing. That would not be appropriate.
I think what I'm hearing them say is, if we don't identify folks who have responsibility to make sure these identified items take place, it's just not going to happen. That's the fear.
Yeah. It is nice to have assignments, sort of. I agree. Yeah. Faye?
Actually, since the time of year, I get so bothered that after all that tomorrow, what's next? This is like, to whom are we going to coordinate much of this? Should it be GBGM, missions? Should I be a good friend of Susan? So
Everyone should be my good friend.
But I would like to communicate with the other cohorts. So how would it be? So, and in organizing people, no matter what that is, there has to be something like a structure. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a stiff structure. If you go out without anything, any center point, this would be just be a loose thing that happens
Yes, but you're going out with a project to do. Everybody is going out with something very, very specific to do when you go home. If you leave here tomorrow and don't know what you're supposed to do, we have failed. We have failed.
Some of our projects are the system.
Yes.
Some of our projects are the movement.
Yes, particularly
And so
with you, yes.
the thing, and I'm not alone in the folks I've talked to, and so I think especially in a moment of some uncertainty and vacuum in terms of it, there's certainly leaders, lots of them.
Yeah.
But, and so again, it's a really evolutionary kind of, it doesn't have to at all stick, but I like the idea of starting with the core that began this, and then just adding, and it can, even the people from each cohort can vary depending on what, but there's something.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, and I'd love to be available somehow to projects in some way. You know, if people have questions and things like that, but we need to figure out a way that I don't become just overwhelmed by that
Yeah,
too.
Sure. We're not the center of a big, huge web. It has to be a web, not a.
And so there's a way that I can be available though in this. You know,
I wonder if, because it is your project, Kathy. This is your project that we're talking about. So I wonder, I mean, I don't know that we're in a real place of consensus, but there has been ideas of having a representative from each cohort to join this team of 3. Maybe Kathy should be the first one to join. And then we'll have a team of 4, and maybe it does become part of your project to stay connected with the other cohort and decide then, do we bring one from each cohort? And I don't know, that's maybe one suggestion, but certainly I think you should be involved in this, whatever it is, because it is very relative to your project.
And also, like, just get used to it sucking a little, because the vacuum is fine. The vacuum is fine. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's only 6 months. I mean, we're talking, I feel like there's so much fear about we're going to leave and the world we're going to lose everything. And I'm like, I agree with Pat. We failed this week if we walk out here and we don't think we have tasks to do immediately. And I think the 6 months gives us a breathing time to allow things to fall into place. Plus, I'm going to be very east now. You know, come on. They've told us we have a platform, Cornerstone, so we can communicate. They've told us we're going to have each other's emails. We all have the Facebook page. There's plenty of ways for us to communicate, and I think we're all mature enough adults to know if I need something, I can reach out to somebody and get help. The group gives us the lack of vacuum. The connections have been built and made. The relationships are built, and I think that we're all here, and we don't. This sort of anxiety that I'm starting to really feel. I don't feel that. I feel like, you know, we need to evolve because we don't know what it's going to look like in 6 months.
Yeah.
And now we've spent a half hour talking about it, and I'm like, you know, we still don't know what it's going to look like in 6 months.
Yeah, but I just think we need to name some of the anxiety, and so I'll just name some of my anxiety. Some of my anxiety is a distrust and disappointment with the United Methodist Church as an institution and its ability to do what it says it's going to do. And so I'm not saying that about Denise, I'm not saying that about Pat, right? Some ways I'm a good activist, right? Is I have a healthy distrust of institutions. And so I am always leaning on the side of how can we help hold our institutions accountable? And so when you say 6 months, it's only 6 months, I hear, oh my God, it's 6 months. Who is going to be how are we going to be holding all of us, and when I say all of us, I mean everyone in this room and the United Methodist Church accountable to doing what we say we're going to do.
And I think that's really interesting. I think one defense in defense of Global Ministries a bit is Global Ministries it very much wants to be connected to Earthkeepers, but it's also fairly hands-off. That's what's different about this model of mission. Because when I showed your video, I showed Dottie's video to the cabinet of Global Ministries to try to sell them on this program. I showed her video. And then I said, we're going to do this 500 times over across the United States. And one person in the meeting said, "Oh my God, you mean we've got to do 500 of these across the country?" And I said, "No, you don't have to. We're going to do, Earthkeepers is going to do that." So it's a different understanding of how to do this work. And they're not doing it because people distrust them, but it might help with that. It might remove the mission just a little bit from global ministries. Not that I don't want to disconnect completely from it, but I don't want us to be so dependent on it either that we might be disappointed. Yeah. So it's kind of a...
No, and I'm just so happy that we're all here together and doing this.
Yeah.
I don't want this to go away, right?
Yeah.
The only thing worse than this having never come together is for this to have come together and then
go
fall
away.
apart.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
if I would recover from that.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. All right. So yes, Mike.
Okay,
Just, I think to reinforce what you said, Pat, I mean, we've been equipped during this period of time, and we've made commitments during this period of time to go back to our homes, and we've been commissioned, and, you know, let it bubble up. And you wrote a very excellent article earlier in the year about what the vision was of Earthkeepers. I hope you do like a press release that the first class of Earthkeepers have been trained, equipped, made commitments, and have come back home with a commission, and so that we can communicate in our conferences and districts and raise up awareness.
Yes. Okay.
So I want to be, I also want to voice some anxieties, and I would not like to have to be vetted. I want to be clear about that. I was asking that question because I perceived that it might come up. And I mean, this exists because some resources have been released. And if we want that flow of resources to continue, what do we have to deliver back? I mean, in my workaday world, I've got to sell my manager on my worth. And so I do status reports, and I go through the painful process of performance reviews, right?
Yeah.
And that's just so that I can keep doing interesting projects. And the better I do that, the happier my managers are, the more flexibility I have in what I get to do, and I can control some of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really hoping is that we will have the liberty, but that we'll have the right amount of information flowing back upstream so that they're happy with us and let us continue to do what we all want to do.
Yes. Yes. That's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan.
I will say, if I may, not so much, I was going to say not so much speaking on behalf of Global Ministries, but honestly, I mean, I'm a part of Global Ministries, so how do you really separate yourself from that? But I was going to say not so much speaking on behalf of Global Ministries, but more speaking from the Center for Mission Innovation. However, the Center for Mission Innovation is a part of Global Ministries. But the Center for Mission Innovation is brand new. And the part of the Center for Mission Innovation is not so much that we then become the boss of anybody else, but really part of the Center for Mission Innovation is about sharing the wisdom of what is happening that the Spirit is doing in the world. And what I believe the Spirit is doing, one of the things the Spirit is doing, is this movement toward caring for creation in a way that is core to what it means to be Christian. And United Methodist Earthkeepers is one of those ways. And so what I would like is for the Center for Mission Innovation, I mean, we have named this as a pilot project of the Center for Mission Innovation, this right here, this training. And then to see how you go back out and do that work so that we then can share those stories again with the global church. And that can just grow and grow and grow. I mean, that for me feels like a much better model than we have a boss we've got to keep happy. Now, the truth is there have been funding resources that came for this. With all of global ministries, including the Center for Mission Innovation, we know that the state of the church is that there is going to be less and less and less resources, financial resources, available for anything. But the powerful thing about the Earthkeepers is that we're not paying all of you to go out and do the work. And so, I don't know the end of my sentence here. It's a very good sentence.
You're capturing the passion of us to do mission.
Right. I mean, so for me, yeah, that's it. That we're doing mission, and the Center for Mission Innovation doesn't see our job as to tell you how to do it. I mean, it needs to be congruent with our theology of mission. That's it. And once we say, do we understand that, and we're good with that, then to say, wow, isn't that great? Watch them go, and let's have enough of a structure. Let's have a cornerstone so that they can stay connected. Let's have a staff person who can kind of but let's let it be organic and loose as it can be, and yet have enough structure that it doesn't go flying off without any, core to it. So anyway,
I think Kathy should join this team of 3 and make a team of 4.
Yep.
And then beyond that is your sense that we should have one representative from each cohort to join that team or not?
That's 12 people, right?
I think that gets a little unreal.
Yeah, it sounds like it does to me too.
Another question.
Okay.
There are obviously some who feel there's some who like this kind of process and thinking about how we support 10 movement. Please talk to the 3 of us, 4 of us, and as you come up to us, we'll think through whether that makes sense to make sure we have someone in each cohort or not.
Okay.
But it should come out of people's desire to think about these things, because if it's bubbling up in you, then that's a good sign that you're interested.
Just one friendly amendment.
Yeah.
I would, if it seems okay, I'll just throw it out there. I think that somebody from the other non-United States should be included on that. Yes. So a 5th person. So a 5th person.
So we have an international component.
I don't know. I just think that voice is so important, and it's different from our voices.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced that I should be the only one by any means. I really don't. I'm not convinced of that.
I'll convince you.
Okay.
It seems like it should be one of the team of 6. One of the team of 6.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe one of the team of 6. Yeah, because the
team of
international
6
people there are 2 peoples. There's a Global Ministries International Creation Care Ministry team made up of 6 people. Only 4 of them are here, but made up of 6 people. And then there are 5 environmental scholars who are here, who are people that Global Ministries has helped put through school to do degrees in environmental science or some related field.
Who are those people?
Scholars, raise your hand.
We want to stand up.
Scholars.
Stand up and be counted.
There's 2 more of them. There's one more. Israel, yes. And the global team, stand up. Jefferson. So the global team, we put 6 people on the global team. 1 from North America, Susan. 1 from Latin America, Anayi. 1 from Asia, Sotiko. 1 from Africa, Jefferson. 1 from Europe, Mariki, who had visa issues and could not get here. And the Pacific, Cliff Bird, who is no longer on the team. He doesn't have time, and we haven't replaced him yet. So those are the 6. Global Ministries divides the world into 5 geographic sections. For these purposes, we divided it into 6 sections because the Pacific is so fragile and threatened, and we didn't want the Pacific lumped in with all the rest of Asia. So there are 6 people on that team. Now, whether that team is continued or not, that's up for grabs too. That was sort of a trial thing. So that team has come together. This is the third time now that team has come together. So we'll continue to have conversations about that.
So
my hope is that that maybe this global team and the scholars will become Earthkeepers. But originally, Earthkeepers was just for the United States. But then immediately we had lots of advice. Well, we had advice telling us that we needed to go global with this Earthkeepers thing. And when we started thinking about it, we thought, well, a lot of the dynamics are very, very similar. They're different contexts, but the core of what we're trying to do and what we're about is very similar, both in the United States and other parts of the world. So this was kind of a trial run too, to invite these guys here to see, and we'll talk about it tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening with them in terms of was this very helpful for them or not. So
It's been a tremendous gift to us.
Yes, it has.
yeah, I think it has. I have sensed that myself. Yeah, so that's made it really good. Yeah.
Pat, just out of curiosity, I'm not using the right name, your scholars are temporary, right? I mean, that is, they're scholars until they finish their course? Or are
that's a good point. So, and the reason why the scholars are here is because we want more out of them. So traditionally, Global Ministries has a big scholarship program and has made a university education possible for lots and lots of hundreds or thousands of people, I guess, from around the world. It's a wonderful program. But then what the scholarship office discovered was we're helping to educate all these great, the cream of the crop young people from Africa, the Philippines, all over. These are incredible people that we're educating, and then they graduate, and we say, "See you later. You know, we've graduated. We did what we wanted to do with you. Now you're graduated. Hope you have a good life." And the scholarship office began to say, "No, but these are incredibly cool young people. How can we keep them engaged in the mission of the church? How can we not lose them? Because they are valuable. They are obviously. And so how can we hang on to them somehow?" And so, the environmental scholars are the first group of all the scholars in which that office has tried to figure out how to do that. So this is all kind of new stuff, this global team and the scholar stuff. All kind of new stuff that everybody's trying to figure out. Yeah. So where are we now? How are we going to end this? Because I'm ready to end it.
Sounds like we got
Susan.
Can I just say that I think maybe what I'm hearing is that there are some folks who would like to help with the self-organization of this group, and I am perfectly happy to expand that circle. I think expanding it to 12, maybe that makes it more difficult to work than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But so I would say if you're interested, if that's your passion, is to help with the self-organization of Earthkeepers, then talk to me or to Pat or to Dan or to Kathy, and we'll do that. I think maybe it's just that simple. And then if you start to feel a need for every cohort to have someone on some sort of a linking type of group, we can talk about that later. But I think for now, maybe just to keep it kind of loose, kind of like it has been, but expanding it to include more. For the planning.
That's great.
Yeah.
Are we okay? Are we kind of good with that?
Yeah.
We all kind of good with that?
Planning purposes.
Yes, one.
I've talked to Susan, the invitation is there if you decide that you want in April to have a meeting, we'll set it up for the 28th. I'm sorry, the 27th.
I think that desire has been named several times over.
Right.
And I will remind you to bring that up at the next meeting, and we will make sure that there is space.
Yeah,
I've heard that
that's
desire
great.
named in almost every discussion, formal or informal, that I have heard, been a part of on this. I will make sure that there is space.
And that desire is beyond Earthkeepers.
Yes.
That desire has been around for some time. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are we good? Okay. Bill wants to share with us a cricket story.
So this is a fun thing we can do. Take everybody's mind off of this thing, which I think we've thoroughly vetted. So I said earlier that I wouldn't want to ask anybody to do something I wouldn't do myself. And to that end, there were some of us who decided we would try to keep our carbon footprint low by driving here. And that turned out to be a very successful thing. It was a stretch, and there was some anxiety about how much would that actually cost. Would it cost more, plus time more? But it turned out that we got to know each other really well, and I think that was a really big bonus and a lot of fun. So here's another thing that might be in our futures that we can think about a little bit. I heard just a couple of weeks ago about a company that has a new product that uses cricket flour as protein instead of our normal sources of protein. And I left the card here, but it's got some really interesting characteristics. I'll try to do it from memory. I don't know what happened to the card, but it's like 100 pounds of feed will produce 5 pounds of beef, but it'll produce 60 pounds of cricket protein. And
eating cricket. Eating cricket.
So yeah, here we go. So it's
like a flour. It's not like you're going to get legs. It's a flour.
It's like 2,000 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of
they're very good. They
beef.
have chocolate. That's good.
And 1 gallon of water to produce a pound of cricket flour. And lots of, 100 times less greenhouse gases and so on. So anyway, I cut these up. I had like 1.5 bars. One of them is chocolate, and I have 12 pieces of that. And one of them is banana bread, and I have 30 pieces of that. And you're welcome to try it. I think
you're going to put on a
I think that I won't be buying these because I found out that the number one ingredient is almonds. And almonds take 1 gallon of water per almond, so I don't know that that's a good solution. But anyway, they're good. I promise they're good, but I will warn you, it says if you have an allergy to shellfish, you might be allergic to crickets. So.
That makes sense.
So is this a good thing or a bad
Well, here's all the good things about it, but then here's all the bad things about it.
Banana bread.
I'd much rather eat a cricket.
This is banana bread, right?
Chocolate. Chocolate covered loaf. Yeah. Really cool. That's flour? Yeah. You're taking all free range crickets? No antibiotics? Are these hormone-free crickets? They're not GMO. Free range crickets. I won't see them going to run or just. I would love chocolate.
All right. We don't have any wine. Bottoms up.
Where'd you buy it?
There's more.
Really?
The name of the company is exoprotein.com.
And there's 2 of them. There's one on the west coast and one on the east coast, but you can get them.
Anyone want another piece?
Oh, interesting. Yes. Where do you buy it?
So Bill, where do you get it? Online. Not yet available in stores. No, I'm fine, thank you. Enjoy it. I've got to sit down. What about a
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question for y'all.
Yes.
On the schedule, all we have left today is 5:30 dinner and 8 o'clock worship. We're wondering if we want to move worship a little bit earlier. Do you want to do a 7 o'clock worship? What do you want?
Can you start over again, Susan?
Okay,
What's it going
all
on?
that's left on the schedule for today is a 5:30 dinner, and then we were planning an 8 o'clock worship, but it seems maybe a little silly to put worship that late. So I'm just wondering, do we want to move it up maybe to 7 o'clock? What do you think?
And we're going over the Atlanta Speedway to see the.
Sustainable.
Are you leading the field trip?
I'm going to go evangelize on creation care.
Okay, let's plan on 5:30 for dinner, 7 o'clock for worship.
Okay.
Okay,
That's good.
Great, thank you.
so that's it.
Thank you.
We're free.
No.
We have a hand up.
Right. We're missing some photos of you all. I think some of you either didn't take a photo or took a photo before we realized that we needed you to write your name in bold marker on your headline and then didn't take a new one where you had done that. Because we like the numbers are not adding up. We don't have everyone's photo.
So if you've not had a photo with your project title
And your name.
and your name written on your project title and held like right under your chin, then you need to see Hope.
Oh, have you one?
Yeah,
Yes, you I have. Yes.
Because I was in separated sheet.
Yes, but it was bold enough that we could read it.
There were 2 girls, there were not one today.
Some people have left already.
Yeah, I know that people have left, but the numbers still aren't right. I know people have left.
All right. So 5:30 dinner.
Maybe